Sorry if this has been asked frequently. I am new here. Story 1. You feel like a burden to your friends when you know they are also dealing with their own issues. Story 2. Many men believe their status depends on their effectiveness, and they are partially correct. If others know you are struggling, it could harm your status. Women do the same, but support is a form of currency for women in our culture. They are expected to provide it and receive it graciously. Story 3. With my friend being a veterinarian, he does not care if it feels like a burden. He has lost too many friends from the army due to the lack of communication about their issues. Story 4. I do. If you cannot tell your friend that you are feeling down, then that is not a real friend. Many men do not share their troubles with their friends, mainly because they do not want to burden others with their problems. Story 5. My friends and I support each other in a subtle way. We do not discuss our feelings to the point of relying on one another emotionally. However, we seek each other out during tough times to do activities together, such as lifting weights, playing sports, or going on a hike. Eventually, we talk about what we are going through. We always have each other's backs. Story 6. It is as simple as monkey see, monkey do, or rather, not see and not do. Men do not ask for support because they never see men ask for support. Story 7. For me, it feels weirder to talk to men versus women about that stuff, but I also just do not tell anyone my problems. Story 8. We do. We go fishing, sports, and hunting together. We do not whine to each other about how unfair life can be. Story 9. Honestly, I do not feel much emotional connection with my male friends. For me, men are people to do activities with or share interests with. I have no inclination to confide in them. Story 10. As children, girls learn to talk and communicate by playing house and with dolls. Boys learn to compete by playing war games and sports. In both cases, any weaknesses are often used against them. Story 11. In our group, there was an attempted suicide and a death within 2 years. We are now open books with each other and always there if needed. It is a shame I had to experience awful events to get here, but it is here now. Story 12. Because we were taught not to seek help at all. It was considered gay or weak to ask for help. And when we tried, it was seen as an insult. Talking about our pain with each other often became an unintentional competition. It's really bad. That's why we need therapists and women who care. We tried, but we also have that expectation of strength, and being weak is seen as an insult. Story 13. Having close friends like this as men can be difficult to cultivate. Most men already have many other people's problems heaped on their shoulders and are expected to be self-sufficient. I have friends I have had since elementary school. I am almost 40, and I just started giving them hugs this year. I am trying to work towards turning these friends into a network that can support each other, but it is tricky to do without burdening anyone. Story 14. Some of us do. Sometimes we do it in our own ways. Women often want to agonize over details and talk things through to work them out. With men, speaking for myself and my friends, especially my best friend, sometimes just hanging out, joking around, and talking is enough to know we have each other's back. Sometimes that is exactly the therapy we need. Story 15. I confide in all of my male friends. I recently was completely deceived by a woman, and my friends say they are tired of hearing about it, but they still listen when I complain. When they come to me with their problems, I listen. I give my full attention, at the very least letting them know they are heard, and sometimes offering some constructive criticism or advice, as others have done for me. If you don't confide in your male friends, it may be because either you are using them or they are using you. When you listen to the disputes, problems, and issues from your male friends, they do the same for you. I have male friends who don't even speak English fluently, and I listen to them and they listen to me, and yes, they are teaching me Spanish. Story 16. If I thought they could provide good advice, I would. But since their lives are more troubled than mine, I'll pass on their bad advice. Story 17. We do, it just doesn't look the same as how women do it with other women. We do something together. We might watch a game, go out to bars, go fishing, go off-roading, drive to a nearby city, or actually work on fixing whatever random item one of us has been complaining about for months. The most common option. To quote the cliché that I am sure everybody has already heard, Men like to talk shoulder to shoulder, not face to face. This means that if we are going to discuss emotional things, we usually prefer to be doing some kind of project together while we talk. There is also this whole idea that when your friend calls and says he is coming over right now to finally fix that thing you have been complaining about, or if he says he needs you to come over and help fix that thing, it is understood that it is time to talk about something uncomfortable. I rambled a bit. I hope that makes enough sense. Story 18. Because as much as we don't talk about it, many men betray their best friends to get ahead. The brother code is a joke to most. I realized I was probably the only one who takes it seriously. Story 19. A lot of people say we do not do this, but many of my friends confide in me. I do not do it very often, but it has gotten pretty deep in those late Discord chats every now and then. If I were to call my best friend twice in a row, he would probably ring back immediately, and vice versa. Obviously, everyone's experience is not the same, but that is kind of my point. Story 20. Well, not me. I couldn't care less about what they think. I only care about my wife, son, and mother. The rest is all dispensable. Whenever anyone treats me wrong, they are out. Story 21. For me, saying, "Hey friend, I have something important to talk about," will get me ignored. And if I say something like this in person, the usual response is, yes. Story 22. We don't talk about problems, we take action. I can take a friend out fishing on my boat for 12 hours and not learn a single thing about what's going on in his personal life. I'm not going to ask, and he's not going to voluntarily tell. But the day out is mentally good for us. I don't really want to hear his problems, and I don't want to burden him with mine. He can't fix them anyway. We just put issues to the side and move on. Story 23. I think people do more than you would imagine, but we are in a loneliness epidemic, and that makes it hard to find daily support. Story 24. I have an inner circle of people, both men and women, with whom I share my struggles when needed. I usually do not share with more people unless times are very difficult, which has happened. Many men seem to lack a solid inner circle of friends, leading to negative experiences when seeking support. Story 25. I suspect most people have that one friend they have known forever, the person who knows everything about you, including your nonsense, and whom you can rely on to knock some sense into you when needed. I have a couple. Maybe I am lucky. Story 26. Men are supportive when it comes to tangible things like moving, handyman tasks, or giving rides. For example, I am taking my friend and his girlfriend to the airport at 4:45 in the morning tomorrow. I have a personal love for early morning airport drives, but still, we are there for each other for flat tires, bailing you out of jail, helping you work on your car, and so on. When it comes to emotional matters, we all know there is nothing we can say to each other that solves our problems. We are all aware of each other's problems, traumas, and struggles, but at the end of the day, all we can say to each other is, get your act together, focus, or stop being weak. This does not mean that there is no love. We are expected to figure out our issues, but the friends will always be there to help you back up. Story 27. I would not know how to unburden myself to my friends. What would I say? How would I start the conversation? How would I end it? I feel like it would make both parties uncomfortable and accomplish nothing. We do things together. They are my friends, but we are not going to talk about our feelings. Story 28. They have their challenges, I have my challenges. No need to add more problems to their problems. Instead, we help by distracting them from these issues and giving them a break from it all. Golf, fishing, games, beers, and so on. Story 29. They have their own issues to deal with. My problems should not be their problems as well. However, if they need help with their problems, I can assist. Their lives are much harder than mine, and I need to be there for them, but they do not always need to be there for me. Story 30. We do. We just do not feel the need to broadcast everything we do like women. Back when I used Instagram, I went to Hawaii and took a lot of pictures. However, I did not and still have not posted a single picture anywhere online. Story 31. Ridicule. Men can be very harsh. I am an experienced member of my group. I have broken down some barriers. Some of the younger men pull me aside and ask questions often. It takes time to help some men reach stability. Story 32. They are already dealing with their own problems. I am not going to be inconsiderate and act like my problems are more important than theirs. Story 33. Consider the following. Many men do not even have male friends. When people talk about the loneliness epidemic, they are not referring to those who do not have friends of the opposite sex. They are referring to those who do not have any friends at all. Story 34. Men do not usually enjoy emotional labor, so we avoid burdening our friends with it unless we really need help. Then, we are more likely to want solutions to our problems than just someone to listen to us complain about our situation. Story 35. Men do not enjoy feeling vulnerable, especially not to other men. They tend to want to maintain their macho status, so to speak, and they know that if they confide in a male friend, they may appear weak. I can tell my stepdad has a lot of behind-the-scenes trauma issues, but will he ever tell us? No, he will continue to handle it however he does behind closed doors because of how it will make him look. Story 36. They do when it is acceptable and makes sense. However, in other cases, it would be disclosing other people's secrets. If it cannot be helped anyway, why articulate your misery repeatedly? It is better to have fun. Story 37. I did the same until I met my now adopted brother. I changed instantly, and it is the best feeling ever. Story 38. I think that we do not act proactively. It has to come up organically and not on demand, if that makes sense. Story 39. I prefer to deal with things myself and do not share what I am feeling with anyone except my wife and my dogs. Story 40. Oh, we confide, but only to our best friends. We drink, tell our story, drink some more, laugh, and reassure each other that everything will be all right. Story 41. I pretty much only went to my friends to vent and for support for most of my life, until it reached a point where I was clearly becoming a burden as people slowly began not answering. Then my friend suddenly asked me, "Do you think you're the only one with problems?" We had to be separated inside of an Applebee's. Nowadays, I still do talk to them about some things, but I make sure to take a listen-first approach and be there for them as they are for me. Also, I started going to therapy instead of just unloading my problems on my friends all the time. Story 42. Because your true friends are going to laugh at you and call you a bitch. Well, some men generally are not good at talking about feelings. We could talk about logical outcomes, but feelings are not something we are keen on. Story 43. We do triumphs and celebrations too. As the saying goes, misery shared is misery halved, while happiness shared is happiness doubled. Story 44. For me, there is not a particularly deep reason. They just do not feel like the people to talk to. When I have any serious issues, I do not really feel the need to express them. Story 45. I don't, but honestly, it's because I don't really have major issues. We live in good times. I've got food in the fridge that I didn't have to hunt for, a roof over my head that I didn't have to build yesterday, and a doctor to call if I get sick. Clean water comes out of a tap. We're living on easy street. The fact my boss or client gave me a hard time, or I can't sleep, or I have self-doubt, or my girl's gone a bit cold on me, whatever. Yeah, that's fine. It's the human condition and for me to solve, not to drag the mood down whining to whoever will listen. Have you heard a kitchen full of women trying to outcompete each other in their struggles and who has it worse? No thanks. It's not a world I want any part of. It just looks depressing how they complain to each other all the time, like they're not people of basic competence levels. For me, my buddies are a source of fun to forget your problems for the evening. Just drink some beer, play some pool, and chat. Story 46. I feel like you can as you get older or as long as you choose good friends. Trying to be vulnerable and young in front of a group of teenage boys is not always the best if you are seeking advice or sympathy. Story 47. Personally, I do not think I deserve to be listened to, is what I tell myself. But I know it is not true. It is hard to unlearn. Story 48. I have a few acquaintances, but my brothers, my ride or die friends, know my deepest, darkest secrets. We would all take a bullet for each other, no questions asked. Story 49. It depends on the situation and the person, but in general, we do not want to be a burden. Another aspect that people often do not realize is that these conversations happen when men are doing activities together. If you think your friend has something he is not dealing with well, help him or have him help you fix something or go to the shooting range. Something that adds a buffer to it just being a conversation, and those conversations flow much easier. Often, it happens around a campfire. Story 50. This is one of the hallmarks of men that is a great fault. I have personally been lucky to have a designated group of men in my life that I see not only as friends but as brothers. If another man has never felt that connection, I cannot fully blame him for never speaking up because it is important to have that trust factor. Story 51. Many men are not used to expressing how they feel or listening to another man's feelings, so talking can feel awkward for both sides. Story 52. I don't know, I guess I am in the exact opposite situation with my circle of friends. We all confide in each other. We do not cry on each other's shoulders or anything like that, but we support each other individually when needed. Sometimes we just check in and have a conversation. That is a way of supporting someone without bringing up emotions or anything unusual. Story 53. Because you do not trust them to be kind, hold it against you, think less of you, or make fun of you for it. Story 54. Men are taught not to burden their friends with their problems. Why? Because they know their friend has problems of their own and does not need to take on yours in addition to theirs. Story 55. I have lived most of my life trying hard not to be an inconvenience to anyone else. I am not comfortable talking about things like that with my friends, especially when I know they are also going through difficult times. I see a therapist for that kind of support. They are a trained professional and I pay them for their services. By that, I mean I receive good advice and do not feel like a burden. Story 56. Fear of burdening others, shame, and lack of belief that they would actually care. Honestly, it is a real problem and it is not natural. It is learned. Story 57. The men's group is for hanging out, talking about trivial or meaningless things for hours, using language that society might find offensive, or engaging in minor acts of vandalism, sometimes risking one's life. Everyone in the group carries emotional burdens, but we do not want to add our problems to theirs. Only when facing a crisis do we turn to a friend like that. Story 58. In addition to all the excellent and familiar-sounding responses, this is also a numbers issue. Only so many men we know, our pool is limited by work, disabilities, communities, families, diasporas, and more. It is just plain hard to find men we are close enough to confide in or seek support from. If you have even one, you are ahead of most of the brotherhood of males. I am the youngest generation member in an old man group, which is kind of hilarious, but I have no idea what is coming as I age. Nobody tells us the middle-aged facts, so we have to find out from men who have been there and done that. I also have a best friend since we were 6 years old. That is 6 years of friendship. We still navigate and negotiate what and how much we confide in or seek support from our fellow men. Story 59. Do you want someone constantly complaining about their problems and not solving them? I do not, and I will not do that to others. I am a grown-up and can solve my problems. Story 60. Because men are taught that the most noble thing we can do in our lives is not to burden others with our emotions. Also, friends make it easier to not focus on the difficulties in your life and just have some fun while you can. Story 61. I do, but I found that only a few men can truly fit that role. I have only one friend with whom I can have a deep and healthy back-and-forth conversation. The others just start talking about other things to distract me, or they begin complaining about their problems and leave no room for dialogue. Story 62. From my personal perspective, I do not like to be helped because it makes me feel dependent or as if I owe their attention. I just want to solve my problems by myself. Story 63. Because if men started talking about feelings, they would have to rename man caves to emotion dens. I mean, who wants to swap out video games for heart-to-heart sessions? Story 64. Why would I throw my troubles onto someone else who is probably dealing with the same or worse? My job as the friend is to distract him, so we golf, have drinks, play poker, and so on. Story 65. We weren't trained for it. I'm not blaming boomers or the silent generation, but I will say our culture and entertainment are still very much based on small nuances and mannerisms from their times. That means 90% of available role models for men talk and behave in a certain way that implies opening up is burdening people. Opening up is girly. A men can open up, but only in certain situations. Only really serious issues are worthy of asking for help. And so on. We don't have the language tools or models of behavior available to us to copy. If I need financial help from my dad, I have a template. You call for something else, then you say, by the way, and tell the story of how you got here. Then you ask if there's any way he can help. You use a certain tone to make it not a big deal, then you say you will pay it back, and you know he will say it's okay, no need. But if I need help from my dad because I'm feeling lonely, because I have cancer, and I just had a fight with my wife because neither of us knows how to handle our fears, I have no idea how to do that. Story 66. Sometimes they are not just that kind of friends. They might be restricting their own emotions because of false norms of masculinity or simply lacking the emotional vocabulary. Story 67. I have enough on my plate. If you dump that on someone else, then you have to deal with them being worried about you, which is another thing I do not need on my plate. Story 68. We just do not talk about our problems in the way women do. While my example may seem a bit silly, I think of it this way. Women talk like they are in a one-woman show. Everything is about them and they expect empathy and attention. That is not a bad thing, especially because women expect that and offer that in return. Men treat emotions as problems. It is something that requires a solution and a way forward. But that usually does not take long, so once that is done, you go and blow off some steam and that is it. I think the problems arise when women expect men to talk about their emotions like they do, so it looks like you do not want to deal with them, when in reality you already dealt with them and you do not think talking about it is necessary because you already know what is going on. There are men who definitely do not talk about their feelings directly, but that usually manifests in passive aggressiveness, and that is very off-putting and noticeable even among men. These kinds of people are usually very unlikable. I have talked to friends about these things, and we are all pretty much in agreement about these issues. Story 69. I have been the strong friend for so long. I feel like I need to keep a brave face for my boys. They are going through enough as it is. Story 70. Hell, I rarely told my late wife of 35 years my problems, much less any of my friends. Men, especially Generation X men, simply are not wired that way. I have pretty much been told, suck it up, buttercup, our entire lives. Story 71. Because we were told when we were young that it makes you one of two things. 1. Not a real man. 2. Gay, as if doing this magically makes you gay. Story 72. The masculine way is to solve problems, not vent about them. This is why talk therapy does not work for men. I do not want to talk. I want to fix the problem, and if I cannot fix it, then it is not worth spending time sulking. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.